It's hard to remember a tougher time to be in construction. This sector is reeling from multi-million rand fines imposed by the Competition Commission, and it has to contend with a sluggish economy where infrastructure spend is minimal. Now, how are companies adapting to this new normal? In studio with me to discuss this week's cover story is the Finweek editor, Jana Marais. Jana, thanks so much. A very different picture in the construction sector. Before 2010, it was booming. It's a very different picture now. So what's changed?
Yes, I think we forgot actually how many projects there were in the run-up to the World Cup, how train, all the stadiums, the upgrades of the airports. And basically all these big contracts have just dried up. So you don't get these multi-billion rand projects to tender for anymore. And I think one of the figures we mentioned in the story is previously the big companies like the Murray & Robertsons of this world wouldn't even tender for a project if it was anything smaller than 250 million rand. And now that's dropped down way to 50 million rand. So certainly they have had to change their approach to address or to adapt to this new situation where the big contracts, which typically have the fatter margins, they just simply are no longer there.
So how are companies adapting to this? Before we did have government spend, now it's dwindling. They need to look for other avenues to get revenue or to make money. So what are some of the things that you've picked up about what companies are doing?
Yeah, I think the big challenge in the construction sector is that the companies have been quite slow to react to this changing environment, partly because government has kept promising these massive infrastructure spend. They keep saying, oh, we're going to spend this 800 and something billion rand over the next 3 years. But actually, in reality, that money never flows through to the tenders are never issued and the projects never get off the ground. So I think they've been kind of sitting on their structures and they were reluctant to restructure. And I think it's finally dawned on them that, this business is not going to come. And I think it's also, sectors like the mining sector, which is a big client, that's also going through a very tough time. So we see companies, I think Basil Reed is a good example, where they're starting to shut down unprofitable divisions. They've cutting staff, they've changed their management team, they've changed their board. So I think there has been, shareholders have been getting fed up with sitting with extremely low return, negative returns really. So I do think we're seeing the changes, and it's going to be painful.
And these fines definitely haven't helped. So Calgro M3, this is really the only ones on the JSE listed companies that have managed to grow over the last 12 months. Why are they different from the rest? What is Calgro doing?
Yes. Look, I think it's also slightly unfair perhaps to compare Calgro M3 to something like Group 5 because it is a much smaller company, or it was historically. But they've had, first of all, they focused on public housing, things like RDP projects, and really low to middle income developments. And I think given the massive backlog we have in the housing sector, and we see reports of government departments not actually spending their full housing budgets. So there has been money still going through and projects still going on in that space. I think it's a very well-run business. I think I should if I can just check, headline earnings per share has grown by an average 38% a year over the last 5 years. I mean, that's quite a good growth story. And that has helped them to become, to get on the radar screen of investors. And their market cap is now over R1 billion. So suddenly institutional investors start paying attention. So they've had a phenomenal run, and I suppose the question is, how long can that continue?
Yes.
But then I think also, a company like Murray & Roberts have been very good at looking for new business avenue. They're getting quite a big chunk of their revenue now from oil and gas projects, which traditionally was not their focus area. But because of their traditional work drying up, they've managed to diversify and build businesses in other sectors.
Jana, thank you so much. I wonder if Calgro M3 will continue to be a concrete business, so to speak. Had to throw that in there. Thank you so much to Jana Marais joining us and telling us about this week's cover story.